Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down why Serbia failed to beat Portugal in their Euro 2020 qualifier. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But now, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Serbia, more of a 4-2-3-1. Mitrovic up front, ahead of Kostic, Lazovic, and Tadic. And in midfield, Milojevic and Matic. And then we get to Portugal, more of a 4-3-3 with Ronaldo floating in the central position, out in the wider areas, Guedes, and they had Bernardo Silva, and in midfield they went with William Carvalho, Danilo, and Bruno Fernandes. So now let's get to the first half and see how Portugal were able to go into halftime up 1-0. When we look at Portugal against Serbia, this was a must-game win for Portugal, given the fact that they had a slow start to their Euro 2020 qualifying campaign. How would they break down Serbia? Would they be able to do that? And when you really look at it, would Serbia be able to get players beyond Tadic, and would they be able to get players near Mitrovic to ensure that he wasn't isolated? When we do break it down and we look at Portugal as a whole, the key thing here is the fact that defensively they were organized and disciplined, and they have more quality to finish in the final third opposed to Serbia. When you put into perspective that they do have arguably the greatest goal scorer to ever play the game, that obviously helps. When we do break it down as a whole and we look at the board, it's Portugal dropping off deeper into more of a 4-1-4-1 without the ball, and that's based to the fact that Dusan Tadic is floating between the lines and they wanted Danilo near him. And then you have the shuttlers pushing out to Milojevic and to Matic. Those two never really had any time on the ball, and that was down to good work from William Carvalho and Bruno Fernandes, who did move from side to side to switch positions, and they were able to fulfill their roles and close down those two midfielders. When you look at the wider players, Guedes obviously stepping out to Maximovic, and then you have Kolarov, who was looking to push forward, but you would often have Bernardo Silva stepping to him. Sometimes you'd have Bernardo Silva stepping to Nastasic when Ronaldo moved out to Milinkovic. But when you really look at it, they were okay in those areas. He was either blocking off passes or he would step, and there was no real danger when they pushed forward Semedo to step out into that position on Kostic, but that's what they were looking to do. They were closing down that space well, and when you break it all down, even if they are to punt balls up to Mitrovic, it's Font and it's Ruben Dias there, 2v1. You'd like to expect that even if they are unable to win the first ball, they have enough pace to cope with Mitrovic, who isn't the fastest. Portugal, however, despite going up 1-0 at halftime, didn't really create many chances. They struggled in that regard. They didn't really test Dimitrovic. But you did see Ronaldo involved in the earlier stages, and that was key to what they were trying to do. He forced players into reckless fouls. He forced them into bookings. When you really look at it, there was one play in particular where the ball is shifted out to Semedo, and what happens there is that he plays it out to Bernardo Silva before Kostic does step to him. Bernardo Silva shifts into that right-handed zone. Kostic tracks back with Matic stepping across, and he's able to see Semedo make the run across Kolarov. And when he makes the run across Kolarov, he plays the ball into him in a narrow position. But now you have Semedo drifting back out into that touchline role to get closed by Kostic and Kolarov. This is where Ronaldo comes into hand, because Ronaldo shifts over into that space to drag out Nastasic. And now what happens is Semedo splits the two markers ahead of him. You get the quick 1-2. Pulls the ball out into that position, and when he pulls it back into Guedes, who's making the run across the box, it deflects off him into Ronaldo. But what happens there is that Milojevic does get across quickly to block that effort. But that's quick combination play. Ronaldo getting involved, moving across the pitch to ensure that they're able to get into a position where they could create a goal-scoring opportunity. Shortly after that, the ball switched out to Semedo again. Kostic steps to him. Ronaldo drifts into that space to drag out Nastasic, which forces a foul. We saw Maximovic drop into that space with Ronaldo, which eventually led to another booking. But that is how Portugal were able to really go about things in the opening half. Ronaldo was floating from side to side, dropping off, trying to get involved, but he wasn't really influential in the sense where they were creating goal-scoring opportunities, but he was getting them into good goal-scoring positions, because when you look at it, you had Portugal obviously with most of the possession in that opening half, and then you had Serbia dropping off into more of a 4-4-2 without the ball. So they would have Danilo, who was dropping off deeper in between the center backs, and then you'd have Mitrovic and Tadic right beside him, and then you'd have the midfield drop off into a narrow bank of four. When you look at how Portugal are going to go about things, Bernardo Silva tucks in. You want Guedes to run at his defensive marker, but they weren't getting that, nor were they getting overlaps from Rafael Guerreiro on that side as well. What we did see is that Bruno Fernandes's passing wasn't the sharpest on the day. William Carvalho was moving out to the right channel and dropping off deeper to get on the ball in positions where he wouldn't expect Matic to track him. But more so when you really look at it, Serbia were getting into better positions in that first half, just not testing Rui Patricio and showing that they lack the quality that Portugal possessed in the final third. Because when we look to where Serbia were able to find joy in Portugal's third in the opening 45 minutes, it stems through Dusan Tadic. And what we see here is that he's looking to find the ball on either side of Danilo, and it was going to be a test to see whether the Portuguese central defensive midfielder would be able to cope with that in retrospect. So when we look at it, we look to one opportunity in particular where we do see Bernardo pressing both Nastasic and Kolarov, and the ball gets dropped off to Nastasic. What happens here is that Matic drags out William, and when Nastasic tries to play that sideways pass, Bernardo does deflect it, and it falls into the path of Kostic, but Semedo gets there first. But what happens is that it deflects off William and falls into the path of Matic, who now locates Tadic, making that run to the left of Danilo. What happens there is that he finds Tadic in that space between the lines. He slides the ball to Lazovic, who then runs at Rafael Guerreiro, but his cross falls into the path of Rui Patricio. But that's a great opportunity for Serbia to get into a good position, but the final cross was lacking. Shortly after that, we see Matic drop off a bit deeper to pick up the ball, and William doesn't step to him initially. And what happens there is that he's able to find a pass between Bernardo Silva and between William for Tadic, again dropping to the right of Danilo, and this time he slides the ball out to Kostic, who runs at Semedo, but even then his cross isn't good, doesn't meet Mitrovic, and it's another spurned opportunity where Serbia get into a good position but unable to cause the Portuguese defense any issues. Then we see another good passing combination between Serbians' defense to attack, where you see Nastasic being pressed by Bernardo, and you see William now tracking Matic deeper, and he finds once again Tadic to the right of Danilo. And what happens there is that when he plays the ball into Tadic, Tadic drops it off to Kolarov, who now drags out Semedo. When he drags out Semedo, what happens there is that you see the run of Kostic in behind Semedo, and the ball is played around him, but Jose Font tracks it well and does clear his lines. But again, Portugal's shape is good, but Serbia was able to find space in that midfield, more so to either side of Danilo, and perhaps you do need William Carvalho to drop off a bit deeper in that state, but they're looking to press a bit higher, and Tadic was able to exploit that space. But again, not being able to convert those quality passing moves into legitimate goal-scoring opportunities was the downfall for Serbia in that opening half. We look to the final opportunity that was probably their best in the first half, and it's a great move, and Portugal were well organized in this shape. The ball is shifted out to Lazovic, and Guedes is dropped off a bit deeper, and what happens there is that he locates Tadic drifting off ahead of Ruben Dias and Rafael Guerreiro, and he pokes the ball into him. And what happens there is that Danilo's doing a good job of blocking off a pass into Kostic, who is drifting centrally. So what happens there is that Tadic ends up locating Lazovic running off Guedes, and what he does is that with Guerreiro stepping closer to Tadic, he's able to play a reverse ball into the right half space for Lazovic, breaking into that area towards the byline, and he pulls the ball back all the way to Kolarov, breaking towards the box, but he fires his shot inches wide of the net. Another great quality passing move, no one picking up Tadic, his ability to find teammates in those zones, but not being able to score or force Patricio into key saves. And that was the thing with Serbia here. Besides the fact that they had to contain Ronaldo and the creative attacking players behind them, could they create enough chances and would they be able to execute in the final third? However, they didn't in the first half and Portugal were able to take the lead. How they're able to do that? Again, just simple breakdowns from the Serbian defense. When we look at it, it's Semedo with the ball and he's able to bypass Kostic to play the ball into Bernardo Silva. Bernardo holding the touchline, runs at Kolarov and actually allows Kostic to recover and then he cuts in on him. What he does there is that when he isolates Kostic, he allows and waits for Semedo to make the overlapping run to drag out Kolarov. As they get to the edge of the box, now we see the breakdown. Bruno Fernandes is able to drop to move towards the box, and when he gets the pullback number one, he's available to have time on the ball, which we didn't see in the first half because Milojevic or Matic did step to him. And number two, we have Ronaldo in the box occupying Milenkovic and Maksimovic, but we also have William Carvalho next to Nastasic. So what you have there is you have Bruno Fernandes being able to have time to deliver a first-time cross into the box, and William Carvalho, who was often marked out of the game by Matic or Milojevic, in the box occupying a center back, and when the cross goes into the box, the keeper does try to punch it, but William and you have Nastasic or Milenkovic actually going for the ball as well. So when the ball is punched, it's not punched well. There's a bit of a scramble, and William Carvalho is able to tap his effort into the net, and Portugal go into the halftime up 1-0, despite the fact that Serbia did get into good areas, just lacked that extra bit of quality. And Portugal, we got to give them credit. The defensive shape was good. Although they didn't create enough chances, they were arguably the better side going into halftime. So now let's get to the second half, see what changes both managers made, and how Portugal were able to kill off the game. When we break down the second half, it did follow a similar theme to the first half, where we did see Ronaldo as a prominent figure in the opening minutes, and he possibly should have built on Portugal's lead before Serbia kind of grew into the game. But like I said, a lot of Serbia's attacks did stem down that Portugal's left-hand side, and a lot of it did grow through Maksimovic, who was able to push forward a bit. Look to the first opportunity, he's able to split Guedes, and he's able to split William Carvalho, who didn't step to Milojevic. And what happens there is that Tadic steps ahead of Danilo to pick up that ball, and Bernardo is caught out of position. You have Kostic moving ahead of Font, and now you have Tadic who's able to shift the ball out to Kolarov to run at Semedo. What ends up happening here is that he tries to locate Mitrovic, who is positioned ahead of Ruben Dias, but Font does step in to intervene, but Mitrovic does well to follow that loose ball, nick it into the path of Milojevic, but he scuffed his shot inches wide of the net. Shortly after that, it's again Nastasic switching the ball out to Maksimovic. Guedes doesn't step to him, and what we end up seeing is something different from Tadic. This time running off Danilo to break into the space in behind Rafael Guerreiro in that right channel. And what ends up happening there is the ball's clipped over. Rafael Guerreiro does well to track it, and he pushes Tadic to the byline where he pulls the ball back. But what Danilo does well here is that he tracked the run and was able to cut out the tame cross into the box. So although he did get exposed, Rafael did well to cover, and Danilo covered his positioning. So that is an area where you could say that Portugal did well to fix the error that was exposed. We look to another opportunity, this time again, short free kick. Portugal switches off Guedes and William. And what happens here is that the pass does fall to Tadic, who moves to the left of Danilo. And when he picks up the ball, he tries to locate Kostic running off Semedo, but the ball is overhit. And once again, that's another area where you see Tadic pick up the ball in a dangerous position, but just not connecting his passes. And that was crucial to Serbia's downfall. We look to one more opportunity. This all stemmed within the opening 15 minutes. And what we see here is Milojevic getting time on the ball, which was rare, to slide the ball in between Danilo and Bruno Fernandes. Danilo was monitoring Tadic, who was looking to break off him, and the ball into in between those two, falls to Kostic, who does drop off a bit narrow. And what happens there is that he tries to locate Kolarov again, making that forward run. But this time, Bernardo Silva does well to cut off the angle and intercept the pass that's going into that path. Like I said, we see there that although they do get split, you have Bernardo Silva, who did work hard to track back, press, and close down areas for his fullback, and that's a great opportunity there to show what a great defensive side Portugal can be. So when you look at all that, they got their chances to move into key areas, and then Portugal eventually doubled their lead. How did they do that? Simple. Both of the goals or two of the goals that they do score in that second half, it does stem from Font building out of the back. This time, he slides the ball ahead of Tadic, who wasn't marking anyone, and it falls to William Carvalho dropping deep. He picks up the ball, slides it to Bruno Fernandes, who is closed down, and what happens there is that the ball is shifted out to Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva now can run at Kolarov and at Matic, and he locates Ronaldo dropping off into space ahead of the center backs. Splits those two. Ronaldo instantly links play with Fernandes, and that pass does bypass Milivojevic for Bruno Fernandes, who slides the ball out to Guedes, who now is ahead of Maximovic, and he cuts in, then cuts back out into left half space and fires a superb effort past the keeper. Portugal up 2-0. We see some changes. Joao Cancelo comes on for Semedo due to an injury. We do see Jalic come on for Lazovic, and what you have now there is that Jalic does like to cut in centrally and move laterally across the pitch, and that did lead to some quality chances. Well, not quality chances, but some of Serbia's best moments where it looked like they could test Patricio. You see Danilo being pressed by Kostic down in the right channel, and what happens there is that he plays a ball into Font that is loose, and Tadic steps into it to slide and make a tackle that falls into the path of Jalic ahead of Ruben Dias, and he fires a powerful effort on goal that Rui Patricio pushes over the net. Later on in the game, we have Milojevic split Bruno Fernandes and Danilo, and finds Kostic central again, and he drags out Bernardo Silva and turns him and slides the ball out to Kolarov ahead of Cancelo. We see Jalic make a run into that left half space, and what happens there is that you have Kolarov fizz the ball into Tadic ahead of Font, and he pokes the ball into Jalic, but he drags his shot wide of the near post. But you look at all those chances that they do create. When you do break it down, they do score goals off defensive mistakes. You have the Milinkovic run off Danilo that no one marks, and he towers over him. You have Bruno Fernandes playing a poor pass into the path of Tadic that leads to a 2v2 against the center backs where he slides it to Mitrovic. But Portugal's goals really did sum up the game. We had them up 2-0, and we look to the third goal that kind of sums things up. The only real change they made was bringing on Joao Felix for Guedes, and what that did was that he was able to drop off deeper, evade challenges, drift into spaces, ensure that Portugal retained possession, and like I said, the final goal that won the game. It's again another breakdown by Serbia, but a quality passing move from Portugal. Font slides the ball out to Joao Cancelo, and Kostic doesn't get tight to him, and William pulls out Milojevic. So what happens there is that Cancelo is able to split them and find Bernardo Silva between the lines. Once he finds him there, Bernardo Silva is able to run at the back four, and we see Ronaldo peel in between Kolarov and Nastasic, and we see Bernardo Silva play a reverse pass in between the center backs. Ronaldo breaks free, and a quality first time finish past the keeper, and just like that, you see what they're able to do. Bernardo Silva find that space, Ronaldo breaking free, a quality goal, and they end up getting a fourth courtesy of Bernardo Silva. But when you break down the game as a whole, this game epitomizes why Portugal are possible favorites to retain their Euro title. When you look at it, defensively solid, organized, disciplined. Although they did switch off on 2 occasions, as a whole and as a unit, they're able to nullify the opponent's strengths, and they have the quality in the final third to make the difference. And in a knockout tournament, that is essential to success. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think we'll see Serbia at Euro 2020? And what about Portugal? Are they legitimate favorites to win and successfully defend their Euro crown? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.